and financiers of goons in the country. The rule of law has been suspended in the country. The DCI Director, Mohamed Amin, has been deployed by William Ruto to provide cover-up of extrajudicial killings and abductions in the country. I've just been told that the 2 police officers who were mentioned in the death of Dr. Victoria Mutiso, they were arrested and released on orders of Kipchumba Murkomen. They were never taken to any police station. I've just now, on my way here, been informed that the DCI has facilitated their relocation to our neighboring country, Uganda. Goons have become part of the command structure, rank and file of the National Police Service. It is now common to see goons being escorted by the police to carry out criminal acts against Kenyans. This was evident in the PCA Mweki attack, Kariobangi PCA attack, and ACK Witima Church attack. In fact, Mr. William Ruto carries out his development tours in Nairobi, accompanied by goons. Case in point, it has been witnessed repeatedly. The plan promised that no Kenyan will be evicted without following the due process of law and, where applicable, compensation. Unfortunately, over the last 4 years, Kenyans have not been spared the wrath of Mr. William Ruto's brutal regime and have been violently evicted from their homes and business premises. Mr. William Ruto has established an assassination network in Kenya to deal with political dissent and to assist Kenyans having an issue with one another to eliminate those they don't agree with. For example, in the 2024, during the Gen Z and Sabasaba protests, the government told us that guns were stolen from Kikuyu police station. The truth of the matter is that no guns were stolen. They never left the police station. Those guns were removed from the police records to be available to goons and rogue police officers to carry out illegal attacks and assassination of Kenyans. Look at the classic example of Dr. Victoria Mutiso, who was assassinated on 19th July 2026, and lawyer Matthew Chalo Bob on 9 September 2025 by senior police officers in a feud related to personal property. This heinous murder was planned and executed by police officers from Kikuyu police station. This police station, as I've said, is a crime scene and an assassination empire. This is a situation in 4 years William Ruto has achieved to put up an assassination team available for hire by Kenyans who may want to eliminate other Kenyans. Rachel Wandeto was doused with petrol on the allegation of having a tattoo on her breast. CS Kipchumba Murkomen IG Douglas Kaja visited her in hospital. William Ruto vowed that the killers would be arrested. They said her death was motivated by certain political leaders. The scheme was planned and orchestrated by CS Murkomen and a nominated senator. Despite William Ruto having instructed that the killers be arrested, 3 months down the line, nobody has been arrested. Nobody will be arrested because she was killed by the police. The Reverend Dumia Kariuki of PCA Nakuru, a vocal church leader, was killed by Nairobi Sierra, a squad formed by Kipchumba Murkomen to intimidate the PCA church to agree to sell their properties in Mombasa, Nairobi, Kajiado to William Ruto. The U.S. State Department, Bureau of Democracy, Human Rights and Labor, the Kenya National Commission of Human Rights, and the Independent Medical Legal Unit have documented over 700 cumulative cases of extrajudicial killings and forced disappearances across Kenya since late 2022 when William Ruto came to power. And with, of course, notable surge tied to the 2024 Gen Z protests where 60 young boys and girls were killed. Mr. William Ruto, it is also important to note that alcohol and drug substance abuse is on a record high in the country. And the climax was when William Ruto appointed 2 known drug barons into his cabinet. William Ruto has therefore deliberately allowed the menace to grow in sections of the country that are not politically aligned to him. While serving as the country's deputy president, I ensured and chaired multi-agency stakeholder meetings across country to exhaustively examine the root causes, extent, and impact of this growing disaster, with the aim of offering solutions. The initiatives were aimed at informing major government policy measures and prescribing interventions and actions to address alcohol and drug demand reduction, supply suppression, and harm reduction. Under my leadership then, I strengthened the intergovernment collaboration and coordination in fighting alcohol, drugs, and substance abuse. I proposed several amendments of national and legal and county legal provisions on alcohol and drug control, coordinated and multidisciplinary licensing regime of alcoholic outlets where all stakeholders were involved, and proposed the establishment of county treatment and rehabilitation centers. I held high-level engagement sessions with the judiciary to fast-track alcohol, drug, substance abuse matters before then. William Ruto's 4 years have achieved unwarranted, excessive availability of drugs to our young people, killing them and leaving others as zombies. I'm confident that on August 10, 2027, we will revisit this program and eradicate this vice in totality. The following are some of Kenyans who have been abducted and disappeared recently. Mark Million Carey, he was abducted in Nairobi. Michael Olo, abducted in Nairobi. Families wept in the Milimani High Court demanding his release. His last location was along Kagudo Road. Evans Omondi, abducted alongside Olo and Carey. Abdulaziz Duba Molu, alias Zizo, abducted in Kiamaiko on June 23, 2026 by armed individuals in civilian clothing and police uniforms. Davis Lichuma, a rights activist seized by the masked operatives outside Parliament, later traced to a hospital heavily battered. Omwancha Clifford Evans, listed among the recent abductees by local human rights groups. Manyura Morisori Douglas, still missing following a wave of clandestine security enforcement operations. Jimmy Mtava Mwanzi, abducted in Mlolongo, not seen to date. He was abducted at the instructions of DIG Langat. Dennis Chege, an activist who was said to be involved in the Gen Z protests, vanished and remains completely unaccounted for to date. Brian Stigo, a Nakuru fisherman, who mysteriously went missing in 2022 under similar contested operations at Lake Nakuru National Park. The plan promised Kenyans that the National Coroner Service Act of 2017 will be amended to establish the Coroner General's Office. The objective and aim of this amendment was to remove the burden of investigating suspicious and police action deaths from regular police channels and DCI. Further, the amendment of the Act was aimed at removing potential conflict of interest and ensuring absolute transparency in handling and explaining deaths, enforced disappearances, or fatalities resulting from the law enforcement operations. 4 years later, this promise has not been fulfilled. National Coroner Service Amendment Bill 2026 was officially published in the Kenya Gazette on April 16, 2026, and received by the Directorate of Legal Services in July 2026. It is currently at the introduction and pre-reading stage in the National Assembly, awaiting formal first reading and committal to the relevant departmental committee. Mr. William Ruto has also facilitated acts of transnational repression against foreigners in Kenya. More specifically, on July 24, 2024, that 6 Ugandans, members of a Ugandan opposition political party, as part of a joint Kenya-Ugandan security agency operation, and were forcibly returned to Uganda. On October 18, 2024, 7 Turkish asylum seekers were abducted in Nairobi by masked men. Kenya later confirmed it forcibly deported 4 of them to Turkey in a joint security operation, citing bilateral ties, drawing severe condemnation from the Office of the United Nations High Commissioner for Refugees and Human Rights. On November 16, 2024, Kiza Bisinje, leader of another Ugandan opposition party, was kidnapped by Ugandan agents while visiting Nairobi. Kenya government officials claimed they were unaware of the abduction, but the Ugandan authorities maintained it was a coordinated action between the two governments. Tanzania journalist and human rights activist Maria Sarangi was on Sunday, 12th January 2025, almost abducted here in Nairobi. Prominent Zimbabwean constitutional lawyer and human rights defender Brian Kagoro was detained and deported from Kenya on February 22nd, 2026. Intercepted by immigration and national intelligence officers at Jomo Kenyatta International Airport in Nairobi, he was held for over 10 hours and subsequently put on a flight back to Johannesburg, South Africa. In March 2026, two officials from the China Civil Engineering Construction Corporation were deported from Kenya amid a high-stakes dispute that arose in Kenya shillings 30 billion Kenya Railway city tender. Upon seeking a statutory review of the procurement process, William Ruto and Kipchumba Murkomen deported the complainants' local agents, clearing the way for their preferred entity, China Road and Bridge Corporation, CRBC, a company that has bagged procurement tenders worth 1.2 Kenya trillion since 2022 when William Ruto came to power. China Road and Bridge Corporation is the international conduit for corrupt proceeds in Kenya under the personal and direct supervision of William Ruto. I must say Kenyans are not safe, our children are not safe, investors are not safe, tourists are not safe, no foreigner is safe. And I must say, foreigners, investors, tourists, your own security starts with you. I ask the members of our development partners and foreign embassies accredited to Kenya to ensure that their staff and citizens are safe within the boundaries of Kenya. On protecting the liberties enshrined in our Constitution, William Ruto has breached the freedom of expression in Article 33 and the freedom of media in Article 34, Constitution of Kenya 2010. On 26 June 2026, 4 police officers from the dreaded Killer Squad, armed with AK-47 assault rifles, attempted to abduct the Standard Group Nakuru-based associate editor, Mr. Alex Kiprotich. This attack is a defiance to truth and total on the freedom of media, as stipulated in Article 34 and 35 of our Constitution. In the last 4 years, several media houses, including the Nation Media Group, the Standard Media Group, Media Max Network, and several journalists were subjected to online campaign and disinformation campaign by the government of William Ruto. Reports show that 24 cases of violence towards journalists were recorded during the 2024 Gen Z protests. The Kenya Kwanza Covenant pledged to root out corruption, guarantee financial autonomy for key oversight bodies, and enforce Chapter 6 of the Constitution of Kenya on leadership and integrity. Mr. William Ruto has broken this covenant to the people of Kenya and instead orchestrated outright plundering of the country's resources for his personal benefit and enrichment. On 31st December 2024, Mr. William Ruto was ranked as the second most corrupt president in the world by the Organized Crime and Reporting Project. Transparency International Corruption Perceptions Index ranked Kenya number 130 out of 108 countries globally, with a score of 30 out of 100, reflecting persistent stagnation and public mistrust. Mr. William Ruto's administration has entrenched corruption as a way of life, and it remains systematic, pervasive, and deeply rooted in public service delivery and high-level governance. Mr. William Ruto's Western Hotel has been the leading recipient of government hospitality and catering tenders, securing 37 public contracts valued at hundreds of millions for the period ending June 2026. Contracts have come from state corporations, state departments, and county assemblies. It is clear that William Ruto is in competition with local entrepreneurs, where he flexes his executive powers and gives priority registration that enriches himself and his cronies at the expense of other hardworking Kenyans. I want to bring to the attention of the people of Kenya some of the biggest scandals that we have witnessed in the last 4 years. In the current financial year, State House budget has grown from Kenya shillings 8 billion to 18 billion Kenya shillings, an increment of over 10 billion Kenya shillings. These are the funds that are used to bribe the people of Kenya. And lately, sheikhs, private security officers, village elders, teachers, chiefs, etc. Under the e-Citizen, a special audit report by the Office of the Auditor General exposed major financial and governance weaknesses, noting that over Kenya shillings 11 billion in collections lacking clear documentation or routed through non-designated accounts alongside irregular payments to private entities. The functionless chief system was procured at a cost of 104 billion Kenya shillings, and an independent assessment of this system shows that it is worth 800 million, leaving theft and plunder of public resources of 103 billion Kenya shillings. SHA makes a loss of 6 billion shillings a month. Hospitals and faith-based organizations and counties are owed 105 billion to date. As I've said before, SHA is insolvent and everybody knows it. On the affordable housing program, the Office of the Auditor General reports that have flagged major legal and operational risks regarding fund utilization, including untraceable international development loans, low fund absorption, and missing land ownership documentation for ongoing projects. Further, the levies deducted from Kenyan pay slips are invested in a third-party financial service firm licensed by the Capital Markets Authority. How are their fees determined? How much has been paid out to date? What is his association with William Ruto? On the restoration of Nairobi rivers, Mr. William told Kenyans that on December 25, that Nairobi River will have fish. Can members of the press visit this river tomorrow and bring us one piece of fish? This government committed itself to protecting public assets, strengthening governance, eliminating corruption, and ensuring that public resources would be managed solely in the interests of the people of Kenya. It promised a government founded on transparency, accountability, and prudent stewardship of national resources. On the divestiture of the Kenya pipeline, has Kenya surrendered its ownership and control to a neighboring country? What was the rationale of forcing Kenyan state corporations to invest public funds in a public entity? Who is the mysterious lead transaction advisor, stroke investment banker, that was the face of the IPO? How did he acquire his Kenyan citizenship, and whose interest does he represent? Mr. William Ruto and Senator Aaron Cheriot must come clear on their relationship with this mysterious dual citizen investment banker. On the sale of government's equity stake in Safaricom to Vodacom at 204 billion Kenya shillings, it was a ripoff. Each share was grossly undervalued at 34 Kenya shillings. Why didn't William Ruto allow the use of an open price discovery, or even better, allow a regulated cooperative and SACCO fraternity with over 1 trillion in deposits at the end of December 2025 buy out this stake? Aren't the cooperative society members hardworking, deserving Kenyans? What happened to Buy Kenya, Build Kenya? Or is it Buy Kenya, Build Ruto? Other national assets, such as the new KCC, Kenya Ports Authority, and Kenya Airways, have been strategically targeted for sale. What is the rationale of selling our heritage? Had hard-working Kenyans remit over 100 billion Kenya shillings monthly to the National Social Security Fund, NSSF. These funds now have been targeted for budgeted corruption and ring-fenced to fund infrastructural development projects, such as the Mau Summit Road, Twin Towers commercial building, and the Bombers of Kenya